Okay.
Well, it's great to be here in person. It's been a while. I will officially call this meeting of the Distressed Unit Appeal Board to order. It's our August 3rd meeting. We do have a full agenda today and a number of different items to address. As we've gotten into the custom of doing during our virtual meetings, we will continue to take public comment, and we will do that either virtually or in person. And I know that we do have some individuals who have signed up to provide that comment. If you still want to do that and you haven't yet signed up, please either sign the sheet or pass a note to Courtney, and we'll make sure that you get an opportunity to speak today. Our first order of business before we jump to the public comment is the approval of our minutes from the June 29th public meeting and our July 6th, 2021 executive session. Everyone's had an opportunity to see those before the meeting. Are there any comments or changes that need to be made to those minutes? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. All right. All those, and we can actually vote without calling the roll this time. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, so we will move to the public comment period. Courtney, I know that you've thought through this, so I'll turn to you to juggle the virtual and in-person.
All right. Let me see. I don't even know who's on here yet, so hold on for a second. Well, first off, why don't we take Ms. Johnson? She's here in person.
Yes. Ms. Johnson, please.
Let me, while you get settled, I'm going to switch over to my timer.
Just as a reminder, we asked you to limit your comments to approximately 3 minutes, and we'll give you a reminder just so you're aware. All right, Ms. Johnson,
Thank you.
you can go ahead.
Good afternoon to each and every one of you, those that are joining us by WebEx and those present. First of all, I would like to say thank you for offering WebEx so the individuals can see what is going on with this proceeding and they have some sort of transparency. Because one of the biggest things in Gary that has always been complained about is the fact that decisions were made for us without us being involved. And as a parent of the Gary Community School Corporation for 25 consecutive years, I fought for parents to be heard. And I was trained well in Title I federal law. My youngest son just graduated in 2020, but that has not stopped me from being involved. I just had a parent contact me yesterday, 5-year-old child. I watched him grow up for 10 years. And he asked me, do you know of any school in Gary I could send my 5-year-old child to? Well, there was a time I could say right off the bat where to go. But since COVID and a little bit before, I was kind of shut out of what was going on with the corporation. And that's a sad thing to say. But being a state recognized citizens advocate and also being trained under Region 5 Title I parent organization, a formerly national group, I'm here now to let you all know that I will be more involved than ever before. I have left my city of Gary and moved here to Indianapolis because of my devotion to my city of birth, and also because a certain individual in Indianapolis has proposed marriage. And he felt that I was so attached to Gary, I would never leave. But I politely told him, I can still serve the city of my birth and be with you as well down in Indianapolis. But I'm not going to stop there. I plan on working with parents here in Indianapolis too, that want to get the best education for their children as well. And I hope that you all will be more involved with not just me, but with other organizations that are also pushing to have better for their children in Gary, Indiana. Once again, thank you for your time. I thank the Gary Education Coalition for informing me about the meeting. I didn't get the email from you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Vanessa Nichols. So, Ms. Nichols, let me unmute you. Ms. Nichols, are you there? Or Dr. Nichols? All right, excellent.
Yes, I'm here. I'm muted. Am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
So please go ahead.
all right. I'd like to comment on the registration process that the Gary Community School Corporation hosted. And I'd like to say it was very family oriented. All the schools participated. The Surge area at Westside High School hosted many community activists and stakeholders. There were Girl Scouts, Upward Bound, medical information, Chase Bank, Face Liaison. Everybody had lunch. There was music. You can get your haircuts, free uniforms, new Chromebooks for parents to register, and everybody in the corporation participated. So everyone had a duty. It was very community oriented, and it was the best I've seen in a while. I've seen many. But it was a great process. It was very well organized. And I'd like to say awesome job to Dr. McNulty and to her team of Kimberly Bradley, Kershell Hobson, Esther Good, and Michael Carey. And it looks like I see a new face for the Gary Community Schools. And I am very happy to be a part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we'll have Mr. Next, we'll have Mr. Buggs. Mr. Buggs, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
first of all, I have, thank you all for allowing me to speak a minute. I have some complaints about the transparency. Speaking of the registration, this is the first time in the history of the Gary Community School Corporation that the advisory board was not invited during the registration period. There's been a lot of non-transparency by Dr. Paige McNulty. There was 2 Black females that was employed as apprentice painters for the Gary Community School Corporation, and she got rid of them and hired a white man from DeMott, Indiana. I understand he's going to be a permanent painter. Also, I asked her for some 29th. She promised to give it to me when Ms. Bradley came off of vacation in 2 weeks. This is August, and I still haven't received that. So the other thing I'm concerned about, and the board is concerned about, is that in any inner city, there needs to be some Black male presence. And since Dr. McNulty's been there, 5 males have left the system. Mr. Muhammad used to be a principal, he's gone. Mahone used to be a principal, he's gone. Mr. Higgins was the teacher, I think he's gone. Clarence Little is gone. We had another employee, his name was Simon Lilly from Gary, police officer, he's gone. So and then she hired a bunch of white ladies that I don't know what their job is. I'm not prejudiced, but I'm just telling you the facts as they are. In the inner city, you need male presence. So we don't have any transparency. The advisory board is never invited to any events. And the other thing is, there's none of the jobs are being posted that are $50,000 or more for the Black contractors in Gary, some of whom are on the vendors list in Gary, Indiana. Now, I sent some questions to Senator Eddie Milton. I hope that he will get a chance to ask and those questions be answered for the advisory board. We have a lot of problems in Gary, Indiana. The citizens are in an uproar because Coach County was terminated from her coaching job in cross country. She has been there for some time to train those students inside of the school building. Then when they get a new track, they get rid of her. That is wrong. They called her replacement at home several times and told her the job was hers. And also, she was interviewed by someone with a high school education. This lady has a PhD and was an Olympic hopeful. That is totally disrespectful to that lady. So we have a lot of problems, DUAB member board. You all need to come up here and listen to the citizens. Now, I hope that you all will listen to those questions that the advisory board can't get an answer from the administration that we gave to Senator Eddie Melton and Chairman McAdams. I sent those FOIA requests by Mr. Melton to give to you. And thank you all very much for having me this opportunity to speak and voice my concern that the community wants to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last individual that I have here is Representative Smith.
Yes, Representative Smith has asked to speak with us. You'll remember that Representative Smith serves from time to time on this board. And so as is our custom with members of the legislature, we will offer him the opportunity to speak for as long as he would like to.
Representative Smith, are you there?
I am. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 items that I would like to address. Before I get to those, I would like to commend Dr. McNulty, the MGT team, the
Here we go.
Can you hear
Here
me?
we go.
Say what?
Sorry, hold
I
on.
think we have some interference. Just a second.
All right, let's try that again. Representative Smith, are you there?
Yes, I was saying that I would like to begin by commending the MGT team along with Dr. McNulty and the educational leaders and the teachers that were involved in the registration fair. I did attend it. I thought it was well done. I would have hoped that it would produce more registrants, but the number they got was promising. However, I do have some concerns that come to me from the citizens. I don't know if they've talked with Eddie or not, because normally when they come to me, I refer them to him since he is the person representing this area on the DUAB board. But the first thing that we have concern with is whether or not you're going to be in the leadership of helping MGT or demanding that they present to you a plan of how they are going to use the stimulus dollars to get us further out of debt and to make sure that we have some transparency on how those dollars are going to be spent. That is a grave concern of this community. The second point we like to make is that the community is concerned that they see more and more administrative staff being hired. And if we're trying to work ourselves out of debt, and they've done a good job in doing that, we would hope that they would consider why we need, with the closures that we have, why do we need additional administrative staff centrally or in some of the schools where we have low student populations? That's another concern that this community has. And then the third point I want to bring up is the Gary meetings. I know that that was a commitment that was made by the members of the DUAB board prior to the pandemic. With the pandemic, we know that things could not be as planned. A question to you, and this doesn't come from the community, but comes from me, is when do you plan to, since you're having face-to-face meetings again, when do you plan to have a Gary meeting where citizens can come and ask all the questions that they need to ask?
Thank you, Representative. We appreciate you speaking here today and bringing those concerns and interests to us. I think we'll be addressing few of those here before too long, so please stay tuned.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
That is everyone that I have on my list.
All right, so that concludes our public comment period.
Switch this back.
Sure. All right. Well, our next item of business is the consideration of the appointment of a new DUAB executive director. I'll step back before we jump to that item. And for those who are not aware, though I think this has become public knowledge at this point, Courtney has accepted a position at in another agency of state government. She is going to be joining the Department of Education and really continuing the work that she's been doing with, as part of DUAB, in that side of state government. And we're very excited for her, and we're very proud of her, and wish her the best in that endeavor. We know that the state will be well served by Courtney and her skill set. We've been very fortunate to have Courtney for 4 years in this role. She is really the first person to hold the position of executive director of DUAB. She created and built this organization much by herself, and we owe a lot of debt and gratitude to her for the work that she has done and the blood, sweat, and tears that she has put into this organization over the last 4 years. It has not gone unnoticed, and I think that we are beginning to see the fruit of those labors, and we're very thankful for the work that you have done. And I just want to say on behalf of the board, I want to say thank you for the work that you've done. I want to say thank you for your time and your effort. And I won't ask you to stay again. I've already done that plenty of times up until this point. But want to wish you the best as you head off into your new endeavor, and just leave us your phone number.
Thank you very much. And Tracy, make sure my phone number changes.
I know that Eric Parrish, who has been really the lead person for our management team in Gary, did ask to say a few things in recognition of Courtney's departure. So Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good to see everybody today. 1,463 days. That is 1,463 days is 4 years and 3 days, or the exact amount of time since the turnaround of the Gary Community School Corporation began. August 1st of 2017, almost to the day. Over these 4 years and 3 days, Courtney has served the Distress Unit Appeals Board with distinction. Always prepared, always engaged, always thoughtful, and always mindful of not just what is in front of DUAB, but what is around the corner or in the distance. The executive director role is much more than board administrator. The role is to equally ensure accountability, transparency, and results. This complex and demanding role required all of Courtney's gifts and talents. Organization. She is the keeper of the Excel spreadsheet, the Excel spreadsheet. If something is on Courtney's spreadsheet, it gets done. Accuracy. In any high-profile project, the stakes are high, the margin of error is low, accuracy is critical. Not once did we ever hear, let's just wing it, close enough is good enough, or let's go with what we have. Not once, not ever. Doing what was right in the right way was never compromised. Caring. Within a few minutes around Courtney, it was obvious her days were filled not by doing a job, but by rather fulfilling a cause. And most of all, unflappable. And there have been times when flappable would have been expected. Even in the darkest moments of a U.S. Treasury threatened bank levy, national media front page and lead story negative news, and multiple judgments, settlements, and lawsuits in the distant past, Courtney was rock solid, always focused on a solution. On Courtney's watch, there has been great progress in all 4 pillars of the GSC turnaround. Highlights of this progress include the following. In academics, implemented a one-to-one technology platform in August of 2020 in the pandemic with 1 Chromebook and hotspot for each student enrolled in GCSC. adopted a culturally relevant curriculum, exited high-risk designation federal special education compliance regulations after being designated high risk for 10 years, and implemented formative assessments with associated data and cycle planning to lead to gains in growth during a year impacted by the pandemic. Under engagement, under her watch, created the path forward, which you'll see today, to provide quarterly progress reports and performance dashboards. Delivered over 7,000 meals per week to families during the pandemic. Adopted a local hiring and local purchasing policy, and established school advisory committees at every school comprised of parents and community members. Under operations, with the help of Senator Melton, established the School Improvement Fund. Again, can't thank you enough, allowing GSC to invest $25 million in facilities. Created the Northwest Indiana Trust, an employee health insurance pool that provides significantly lower costs with better benefits for employees. Sold 20 vacant and dilapidated properties, and repaired and reopened the high school track after more than 10 years of substantial disrepair. Under fiscal, refunded 3 series of bonds, creating over $2 million of savings. The last common school loan, if you think back to September of 18, was the last time the Gary Community School asked for a loan. Decreased the debt from $104 million in August of 17 to under $70 million in 2021, and reduced the annual deficit from $22 million in August of 17 to under $2 million of December of 20, and on track to be reduced to be below zero in 2021. The Gary Community School Corporation is in a much better place today than it was 1,463 days ago. On a more personal level, Courtney has been a trusted resource, a sounding board, and a valued colleague. She was always accessible, available, and responsive. And Courtney, I appreciate you and have enjoyed working. On behalf of NGT and GCSC, Dr. McNulty has a gift for you. And we all wish you the very best in your new role, serving the people of Indiana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We do like the rock shirt. Just shirt, something you can wear. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you.
Us and all the work you've done on behalf of the kids of Gary. We thank you very, very much.
Appreciate that.
Well, before we move on, is there anyone else who would like to say anything as we say goodbye to Courtney here at our last public meeting? We still have her for a couple weeks, but this is our last opportunity to say goodbye.
I'd love to, but I can't follow Eric.
I had to speak before him, so.
Yeah, you have that pleasure, luxury. Courtney, not only been a valuable colleague, but you've been a valuable friend to all of us here today. So we wish you well. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your guidance. And you're only going to be a floor away instead of a block away. So, again, congratulations, job well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd just say thank you, Courtney. You know, I've already sent my thoughts to you before the meeting, but seen different levels and phases of this process. So it's definitely been a journey. So I'm still working with you since you're still going to be at the state, and just thank you for the service.
Thank you.
Well, Courtney, I appreciate you. I do feel you're abandoning me. I'll hold it against you. Wish it would came up for me and not her. But, you know, you've been here a long time. 6 years ago, as you said earlier, we went down to Gary and started some of this process. And there's still a lot of work to do. You know, we heard all about the finances. We've got the finances. We're getting down there. You get your grades there. And get the get those up. And I think we can work on that. We get it done, and it's all for the betterment. And I think where you're going with DOE, you're definitely not going to get away from this. So, you know, I do appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Best wishes.
Thank you very much.
So,
Thank you to everybody. Tell this is not, I'm a behind the scenes person. But no, I appreciate all of you, all the friendships and progress that we've made. Just it's been an amazing ride. So look forward to working over at DOE and getting to work with some other school corps as well, and hopefully kind of have a benefit or have an impact throughout Indiana. So.
Well, from one chapter to the next, we must move. And so we do have the consideration of our next candidate for the executive director position of DUAB. He's here with us today. We have Mr. Pete Miller. Mr. Miller is no stranger to state government. He formerly serves as a member of the State Board of Education. And prior to that, he has worked with organizations such as IU Health and Pro Horwath in a consulting role, and then also worked for Governor Daniels as a member of the Office of Management and Budget and the Government Efficiency and Financial Planning Group. And last but not least, was also a state senator for a number of years from the Hendricks County area, and a member of that community and a member of the legislature. So we are fortunate to have him here. To give a recap, I know you, the board members, know this, but for the benefit of the public, as you recall, we went through a process, myself and Courtney and O&B Director Chris Johnson went through a process of vetting a number of candidates. We did put the position out for public posting and invited individuals to apply, recognizing that it's a unique skill set that is required to be successful in this job, and that it requires a number of somewhat disparate skills to be able to do it well. We received approximately 10 or so applicants and interviewed a number of them and had a number of very qualified candidates to consider. And from that pool, Mr. Miller rose to the top as the one who brought both the combination of the skills and the experience that would, I think, give him the best ability to hit the ground running and be able to not only delve into the details of everything that is required of this job, both with school financial information, Gary Community Schools, and the other issues that we deal with, but also having much experience dealing with the relational aspect of this job, which requires building strong relationships, not only here in the State House and with our management team, but with our community stakeholders in Gary, with the legislature, and with school corporations and school officials around the state as we work with them on their fiscal struggles across the state. So with that, I place before you a recommendation to appoint Mr. Pete Miller as the new executive director of DUAB with a proposed starting date of August 9th, next Monday. And we put that before you for a motion.
So
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. I would like to, let me do it this way. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Miller, would you like to introduce yourself and say anything as?
Well, as Courtney would say, is like take her job unless she can leave.
Courtney can't leave yet. This is just a double-filled position at the moment.
I will say, observing the process, you didn't put AD specialist in the job description. About speed on, so
We didn't want to scare you away.
that was my first impression. As Justin kind of read some of my resume, I've spent about 12 years of my 30-year career in state government in multiple different roles. I would hope that doesn't mean I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, but I do have a varied experience, and I know that that's kind of what's required in this position, and certainly can't walk in on day one to have the trust that the corporate has built over that 4 years and 3 days. But all I can do is submit that I would pledge to to build those relationships. For those of you who I know already, look forward to working with you, and most of you who don't, eager to get to know you and to start to build that trust.
Thank you. We look forward to having you join us. And for the benefit of those that are here, the way we plan to handle this transition, Courtney and the Department of Education have worked with us to ensure the smoothest transition that we can. Obviously, there is a lot of history, a lot of information that there is to transfer and bring Pete up to speed. And so what we plan to do is take about a week for Courtney and Pete to overlap so that we can transfer as much of Courtney's knowledge and experience to Pete in that period of time and bring him up to speed so that he can start hitting the ground running. And then, as I mentioned, we've got a hardwired line to Courtney from Pete's office so that he can pick up the phone anytime he wants and call her. But to be able just to bounce ideas off of her, and otherwise I think she's agreed to remain available to us as we need her and to help him as he's finding his way here in those first few months. So would encourage all of you who don't know him to please introduce yourself to him, and we will do our best to get him around to meet everybody here in as short as time as we can, and look forward to getting him really up to speed and on the ground.
Sure. Can I make a quick comment?
Please.
First, as a resident up here, I'll say welcome. Looking forward to working with you more. For the sake of the public, I want to make sure I share with Pete already that with the 1,463 days, we've seen a lot of change over the years through this process. And I think it's incumbent upon DUAB to ensure the city of Gary, the parents and the students, although Courtney will be transitioning to a new role, that the commitment is still there to ensure that academics improve as well as the finance address. So again, I know it's going to be a process of transitioning. I think it's important for, like Representative Smith mentioned, to identify some dates to be back into the city, to give that face time and that attention to citizens on this issue. But whatever I can do to assist, something available, because this is extremely important to constituents. So welcome.
Thank you, Secretary. All right. Well, with that business behind us, we still have a number of items to tackle. Here, our first item is there are a number of contracts that Courtney has approved in her capacity as executive director. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we delegated authority as a board for Courtney to approve contracts up to $250,000 that were submitted by the Gary Community Schools in an effort to expedite and avoid bottlenecks in that process. So Gary Schools has been hard at work over the past few months, and as a result of that, Courtney has been engaged with them on a number of contracts. So we're going to summarize those.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you have before you, you have a number of different contracts that I have approved since our last meeting, which was June 29th. At that last meeting, one of the major items that we did consider was the School Improvement Fund update. And if you'll recall, there were a lot of different projects on there that the team was wanting to get moving very quickly. So a number of these items actually relate back to that School Improvement Fund plan. So I'll walk through fairly quickly, and then certainly if you have any other questions, I'm happy to take those. So the first contract that you have is with JMD Construction. That's for updates and repairs to the West Side Football Field press box. That will be paid through the School Improvement Fund and is in the amount of $108,600. The next two contracts are both with JEL Audio. These are for sound systems for both the football field and the West Side Gymnasium. For the football field, we have a cost of $43,489. And for the gymnasium, $88,154. The football field sound system will be paid through the School Improvement Fund. The gymnasium sound system, for the time being, will be paid through local funds, and that may be amended into the School Improvement Fund plan in the future. Next, we have a purchase of welding equipment from Lincoln Electric. This is welding equipment for the Career Center. They've seen an increased interest in welding classes, and so that is in the amount of $113,783.90. This purchase of this equipment will be funded through Title 1A. Next, we have a contract with Team Fits Graphics. This is a purchase of a video board for the football field in the amount of $136,357. This is just the purchase of the video board itself. Installation of that video board will be done either through in-house means or through a local contractor. That project is being funded through the School Improvement Fund. And then along with that, we also have a contract with Moss for the installation of a fiber cable at the football field that will be necessary to run that new video board. This is a total cost of $74,915.18, also funded through the School Improvement Fund. Then we have the last contract you have in front of you is with Lakeshore Learning. This is for the purchase of furniture at Bethune or for Bethune Elementary Childhood Development Center. Because of the extension of the day, the school will be adding in a required nap time. And so this is to update the furniture that is at Bethune to allow them to have sufficient space to accommodate the naps. The total cost of this equipment or this furniture is $116,358.90 to be paid through Title I funds. Then the last item on the agenda is also that I have approved a settlement agreement for $75,000 related to a civil suit that was filed against the school corporation in 2018 under cause number 45D10 1807 CT 311. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Courtney regarding these approvals of contract?
Yeah, this is probably for the management update, just the timeline for the projects will start this year, particularly for the football field and things of that nature.
Dr. McNulty speak to that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't need to take any formal action on that. Those are informational purposes. If you have questions, please reach out to Courtney after this if you need to. Our next item of business is the update from Dr. McNulty. It's a pleasure to have you here in person.
I'm so excited.
And not to just watch on video.
Not
So
scared that my technology is not going to work or Dr.
Yeah.
Working in the background. Yeah, that's exciting. And one thing that Courtney didn't mention on the 1,463 is that's also the amount of phone calls that she and I have had last period of time together. But the one thing also that wasn't mentioned is that Mr. Miller, welcome. She's done a great job of putting systems in place so that we don't have to have 1,463 calls. So she's done a great job putting things in place as we move forward. You're leaving it in a good spot. You've done tremendous work, again, on behalf of the kids in Gary, and I deeply appreciate all the help that you've been to me, but I think you're leaving it in a great spot, and I look forward to continuing working with you at the DOE. So just want to personally thank you for everything you've done. Thank you. So last meeting we had, one of you, I don't remember which, told me that you wanted to hear from some kids. So we brought a kid with us today. So I'm going to let Ms. Chelsea introduce her. And then we anxiously look forward to having you come sometime in September for the tour and so that you can hear from some kids and some parents. But with that, I'll turn it over to Chelsea this morning.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to be in your presence in person. This young lady whom I am getting ready to introduce, I am so proud of. We first encountered one another when we were doing a surprise announcement as we rushed up on her front lawn last spring to let her know that she had been selected as an Eli Lilly Scholar. Since then, we have formed a relationship of friendship, and she is now the valedictorian of the class of 2021 Westside Leadership Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Miss Kanae Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone.
nervous.
She and I been on the radio together.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Kame Brown, and I am a 2021 graduate of Westside Leadership Academy. I've been in Gary School since I was in the 3rd grade, and since then I've been the valedictorian of my 6th grade class at Daniel Hill Williams Elementary School, the valedictorian of my 8th grade class at William Annex, better known as Dunbar Pulaski Middle School, and as Ms. Chelsea said, the valedictorian of the history-making graduating class of 2021. This task has been arduous. It's been very hard. Since then, I've lost both of my parents. My dad died while I was in the 8th grade, and the staff and teachers at Dunbar Pulaski were comforting and understanding. My mom died when I was in the 10th grade, and again, the staff and teachers at Westside were understanding as well. They didn't coddle me. They helped me, and they helped me process my grief, and they pushed me to become a better student in school and a better person in society. And that's what Gary Schools, that's what they're all about. As we know, this pandemic has been a weight on all of us. It's been discouraging and depressing, not for just students, but teachers, staff, each and every one of us. But I am proof that great things can happen in the Gary Schools, even in the midst of a pandemic. As Ms. Chelsea said, I was the recipient of the Eli Lilly Scholarship. And that wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for the counselors and the teachers at Westside. And in the fall, I will be attending Valparaiso University, majoring in engineering. I owe my thanks and my gratitude to Gary Schools because they helped me and they pushed me to be who I am. So in my personal and honest opinion, Gary Schools are great. Thank you.
May I ask you a question?
Oh, yes, yes.
I like asking questions. When you went there since the 3rd grade, what would you find that the biggest challenges for the kids in Gary as far as what they face, as far as getting the education and how they get that education so that they can achieve their goals? And if you had that, how do you fix that?
You said the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge for me, well, since I was like the new kid, I really had problems with, I would say, fitting in. That was the biggest challenge for me, fitting in and finding my place. So for me, it would be programs to help kids like me and to help other kids find their place. And for Westside, I found my place with the academics because before I went to Westside, I went to Lighthouse, the charter school, and I did not fit in there. I didn't like the environment, and I heard about the academics program at Westside, so I transferred, and that's where I really found my groove, and I became who I am to be, what I am now, as you can see. So I would say trying to just help the kids, to figure out where they need to be.
Is it the adults that help you
Yes.
find where you need to be, or was it other kids in the school?
It was a mixture of both.
Mixture of both.
So maybe to piggyback on what Paul asked, what are we not doing to serve you now? What could we do better? What could Dr. Page do better? Or what's missing that will help you fit in or help your fellow students fit in?
I would say what's missing.
I think, if I go back, it's helping develop it and fund those programs that would help the kids feel accepted and maybe understand why they need or what learning can do for them as far as where they can grow from. So it's like probably helping them develop those programs within the different schools. So that they.
Yeah, are there any curriculum? Are there any classes that are missing? Is there I know the athletics have been starting to be very successful. I'm anxious to get up there to see the new football stadium, and I marked East Chicago on East Chicago on October to maybe come up there and watch that game. But from an athletics or from a curriculum or from a social services standpoint, can you help us? And please reserve the right to, answer this later if you want to think about it. Okay, it's a tough question. So, but that's what we're looking for from you and from Dr. Page and others is what's missing up there that we need. What we need to provide you to serve you better.
So, it is a tough question, but as of now, what I can think of is like implementing more STEM programs, STEM, because when I went to Valparaiso, my orientation, I felt overwhelmed because there were so many kids not like me, myself, my personality, and my appearance, my color. There was just so many kids not like me. And I thought that I would be underprepared due to the lack of STEM in the school system. So that's one thing I would say that we need more of, and I would come back to the question later. So I
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're a wonderful role model. You're just very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Inspiring.
Senator Belton, I think you want to.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. Congratulations, everyone. You spoke at the graduation, did a phenomenal job in representing our city well, speaking today and speaking on the issues that your peers need to be communicated. I think this is an example of what can we do moving forward in the future as DUAB to provide them that platform for students. It's more of a sounding board to allow them to give us some thoughts, suggestions, or something like that in a casual setting. Because they put on the mind, but it was extremely fruitful. So thank you, man, for coming down here and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much.
So this is why we're here, right? I mean, that's, for me, this is so rewarding every day when I'm able to talk to kids and help them achieve their goals. And she didn't mention, but she's got a 4-year scholarship to VU. So we're excited. I told her when she's done, come back and see us. So we definitely want her to come back and talk with the kids and be a guest speaker and continue to keep up with us. So we're very proud of her. We've got many more of her at our school district that we're anxious to share with you. Okay, so some of the other things that we wanted to highlight that are happening within our district over the last several weeks since last we spoke was our CTE program continues to expand by leaps and bounds. We, as the last I looked at registration, we had increased to almost 240 kids, which is a big increase from the last ending of last year. We had our first student who graduated from our aviation program with their pilot's license here this last month, which is the first one in the state of Indiana. We're very, very proud of this student. We have applied for the SEAL state certification, which is the Office of Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeship. We expect to hear back from them, we think, next week and be able to obtain this certification. And we've also going to be applying for some other SEAL certifications within the CTE program. But the CTE program, as I continue to say, is just a gem, a diamond in the rough at our district. And we firmly believe that's going to be one of the draws for students to come back to our school system. So we're excited to be able to continue to watch that grow. As you heard, we had a great citywide registration fair for our parents and our students for 3 days last week. We did have over 36 vendors that came and set up shop, if you will, up and down the Surge, which is right outside of our gym area. We wanted it to be a one-stop shop for our parents so that they were able to get any kind of services that they might need to enable them to get back into school. Historically in Gary, that has been the practice that students don't register for school until the very first day of school, or sometimes not even until the 10th day of school. And so we've been on a very loud media campaign telling parents how important it is that they have their students in school the very first day. We want butts and seats the first day of school, because that's when the learning starts. That's when you're starting to learn the procedures and all that type of stuff. And they're listening and they're hearing us and they're responding. We had over 2,000 families that came during that 3-day registration fair, which is phenomenal. Kids were getting haircuts, kids were able to see our broadcasting station that the kids were manning that we have from the CTE program. They were getting dental services, uniforms, etc. So it was very well received, and we're anxious to see how many more continue to register as we continue forward. But we will grow on that as we move forward in years moving forward. We did end our summer school program on July 29th, which was also very well attended. It was the largest summer school program that the Gary has had in a very long time. We had over 1,000 students that participated in the extended summer day of school, which was from 9 to 2. All students received a breakfast and a lunch during those days. And the school day was on math and reading intervention, and then STEM in the second part of the day for all students. And I wanted to address some of the things that we talked about a few minutes ago. Some of the other initiatives that aren't mentioned up here that we are implementing with our title dollars in the fall that we've had training on this summer is restorative justice. And maybe some of you have heard of restorative justice. It's been around for a couple of years, but it's one of the new programs that we will be implementing within our district. And we've also partnered with the city on it. And I think I've mentioned it a little bit in a couple meetings prior, but it helps to address some of that social emotional fitting in type stuff within the schools. And restorative justice is talking about the culture of your school. It's talking about the culture of how kids treat each other and how staff members talk with students, and also how your SRO officers work with students. How you talk with students out on the street is very different than how you talk with students in school. And so we're having lots of good, robust conversations about that. We're working in collaboration with the judges and the probation officers. They got trained alongside with us in Judge Ingram's court. We're working with students in the fall when they come back so that a group of students per school will get trained so that if there is conflict within the school, kids can help peer mediate those situations. Trying really hard to make sure that students understand that our schools are a safe zone. We don't want fights spilling into our school district, and we want kids to feel like they can come to school and talk with an adult, or most of the time, as you know, students know that there's something happening before the adults do. We want the students to be able to feel safe enough to talk with the adults so that we can circle up and have a peer mediation. So that is a big initiative that we are pushing forward here in the fall. And also continuing on with our character education and those level tiers of support. We've had lots of people from the community who have continued from the referendum who have expressed interest in coming in and volunteering this school year. So we have people that are going to be coming in and mentoring, being a big brother or big sister to our students as we move forward and doing reading, that type of stuff. So we're anxious about to see the fruits of the labor for that. Additionally, we are continuing with our partnership with the GAPS program, which is the Gary Alumni Pathways for Students. They applied for that accelerated learning grant and they did receive the funding, so we're grateful for that. We will be using the funding with them to continue to work on career readiness skills, and they are going to be using their funds for extra tutoring and after school hours. They'll bus students back and forth and provide meals for them as well. As you've heard me talk about, we continue to host our referendum ambassador meetings. We had our second one here about 2 weeks ago. We had approximately 47 people that attended that one out of the 75. At this meeting, the group finally did break up into subgroups based off of their interest. We gave them all a index card for them to talk about which group they wanted to be involved in based off the referendum questions. So it could have been academics, it could have been after school activities, sports, etc. And then based off of that, they broke into their groups and had a very good conversation about where we are, where they want to see the district moving forward, using some of the referendum dollars, and then how do we get there. That group then came back and presented to the larger group, and then we posted those for the community to see as well. So it's a great working committee. Actually, what it's turned out to be is a community large PTA group, because we're definitely talking about much more than just the referendum dollars. We're getting valuable feedback from those 47, and we hope to continue to grow that. We are growing our PTA at every school. I know I've talked about many of our schools don't have a PTA at all. So we are, again, utilizing some of our title dollars in the fall as we move forward to give stipends to parents so that they can get transportation to come to our school district, have meals provided. We're going to be providing professional development to those parents based on their areas of need as well, so that parents are in our schools and more invested on what's happening. So look for that in the coming months as we move forward. I also wanted to talk about, as you know, we're in the last push up before school starts. So all teachers, administrators, superintendents across the country are busily working on the last minute details. Our staff does report on the 5th. So we will be having an orientation for all of our staff members that very first day. Actually today, Congressman Frank Moran's office is at our school presenting to our students who are there for orientation. They came in to talk about expectations and civics classes and how they can come in and support our school district. We are closely watching the Delta virus as it is moving through Lake County right now. Lake County today was moved to the red area. And so we did implement the masks back. We are coming back to school, so don't get nervous. I've told everybody we are going to be back in person. Kids need to be back in front of their teachers. And so we are moving ahead full steam, but we are doing it with masks for all staff and students, regardless of whether or not you've been vaccinated, and continuing on with social distancing of the 3 foot, et cetera. And our parents are very excited to have their kids back in school, and I'm one of them. All right, I did want to talk about that we did engage in the RFQ process that we've been talking about with our insurance broker. And I'm going to have Nicole come up and speak about that process as we have solidified that.
Can I ask you something, Sue?
Of course.
One thing you're gonna find with Pete, he started out with government efficiency planning group. They like metrics.
Okay.
He used to like metrics. In your summer school, you know, the whole point is to try to raise the academic level of grades. What kind of metric do you have in place to move that forward to try to track the success you're having so you can build on those gains?
So we have students who took pre and post tests as they came into summer school that we can certainly share. I think just the sheer numbers of the students that were in summer school is going to help us when we do our formative assessment in the fall. So we're hoping that the fruits of the labor will come from that summer school preload that we did. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, how do you dragging the summer into the regular school year and getting those gains so that we have positive improvement.
Right, so they're looking at the state standards for next school year over the summer and already pre-teaching those skills to the kids. So we're hoping that we'll be able to see those gains when they come into school.
Yes, please.
One comment, then a question. I spoke with DOE and I know that they were doing another round of grants for partners to apply for the gaps, kind of looking at those gaps, summer services. So for those that may be listening or watching on public, nonprofit organizations, I would encourage them to apply. Department of Education, find out when that next cycle is, so they can support Gary schools.
I believe it's open now.
Okay,
yeah.
So the next round is that's good. So I think that's extremely important to help that academic piece. Just in terms of school readiness, or only going off historically, I mean, we've had some issues in the past where sometimes the facilities may have some barriers in time of the school, or all the facilities, you know, either in terms of HVAC, heating, cooling, all that type of stuff. And we've been in situations where school gets started and it might be a heating issue down the road, or it might be a cooling issue for certain facilities.
Yeah.
Is everybody?
All schools are ready to go as far as cleanliness, supplies, all that type of stuff, HVAC issues. We have 2 schools that the air conditionings are still being worked on. They've told me they'll be done within the next 2 weeks. But all the other schools are ready to go, but we do have 2 with cooling still lingering out there.
Yeah, so I'm thinking if there's a mask requirement, then it's going to be hot.
Yes. So we did buy fans for those 2 schools for every classroom, so that they can try to keep them cooler. Yeah, you're welcome.
I had one question about PTAs. They meet through the day, in the evening, or both, or
they will meet after school.
Oh, after school, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And we're gonna provide transportation for them and meals, and then we will also be asking or trying to decide per building what the needs are of that building. So some schools might be focusing on, they want to learn more about our new student management system. So maybe we'll do a session on Skyward. Another building might be saying we want to learn some more on how to have behavior management within our home, parenting classes, that type of stuff. So it's just gonna be based on each school and what their parents' needs are.
Okay, and I follow you on Facebook, our Area Schools. It's so wonderful as the countdown that you've been doing,
Thanks.
the first day of school. But also, everything is so positive. It just brings a smile to your face every time I see it.
There's definitely a positive energy in the air. Kids are excited, staff are excited, so thank you.
It was wonderful.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Dr. Page, on these accelerated learning grant dollars, how do you monitor those? And for their effectiveness and for auditing purposes and so forth, how do you monitor those?
Have Mr. Wonderful Nathan here.
Okay. well,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And obviously you found value in that GAPS partnership.
Yes.
Could you maybe go a little bit deeper as to what you're finding is beneficial and what you expect, maybe
So,
deeper results?
So GAPS meets with us regularly and they take what we're already doing. They're not trying to recreate the wheel and they try to fill in the gaps. And so they'll say, well, it looks like we need to work on some reading tutoring with our parents and our kids. So we've decided to put in libraries, for example, in every single classroom within the district. Our kids and our teachers weren't going to the library as much as we would like. So we've decided to dismantle most of the libraries and put the libraries within the school. And then GAPS would work with us to say, well, we need to get a curriculum in library books that look like our kids, for example. So they're helping us research which those books are, talking to parents, talking to community members. We've had a huge outpouring of people who say, hey, I know these books that one of our own wrote and da. And so they're helping us populate those, and I'm just giving an example, those libraries within the classrooms, and then also helping us to give books out to kids every single month with prompt questions for the parents so they can read along with them. So that's just an example of some of the things that GAPS does alongside with us.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. McNulty, I want to touch on one thing. I know you guys are working on it, but Representative Smith brought up the plan for stimulus dollars. I know we've talked about this, but for the benefit of everyone, my understanding is that you guys will be bringing that back to us next month. So at our September meeting, we'll have an opportunity to hear your comprehensive plan on those dollars, and that's a plan that you are actively working on.
That's correct. Yes, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, that's been I've said it many times, and I'm not embarrassed to say the money is a blessing and a curse all at the same time. We're very grateful to have the money, and it's going to accelerate things for the Gary Community Schools, but it's also a lot to get your arms around and run the school district. So we've been working diligently on making sure that we're using the money very wisely and diligently for the best thing that we can get for the kids. So it's been a lot, but we are feeling very good about it, and we're anxious to present it next month.
We look forward to it.
And we did join that coalition that we were.
Right.
We've got selected, so we are in a coalition with approximately 15 or 17 other school districts like us. So we are meeting with them regularly so that we could hear from other people around the state, how they're using their dollars, and brainstorming with them so that we can, not just be in a vacuum. So, and that's in assistance with the DOE.
Are you finding from that you're finding new ideas out of that, or or also confirming your own ideas that
I say a little bit of both.
Schools are doing that?
Yeah, yeah, it's good to brainstorm and be creative with other people who are in the field so that we can, try to problem solve together. One of the areas that we, our school as well as all the other schools are having difficulty with is just finding contractors who can deliver on services, whether it be people services or contracted services or even buying equipment is very difficult. So,
The HVAC problems that
Yes.
you're talking about, why it's gonna take so long?
yes, getting the stuff in for everything we're doing almost is difficult right now.
Taking time.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, with the recruitment process, I know earlier this year, you guys reported an uptake of enrollment. With about 10 years, we've kind of seen a decrease, right? So with other surrounding schools, that would be very direct, and building a brand new school, right?
Yeah.
Do we see any hindrance? So they have open enrollment, they're building a brand new state-of-the-art facility. Do we see any impact on recruitment in that area?
I'm cautiously optimistic to tell you that I think our enrollment's going to go up. I've been watching those numbers very carefully. And I think that because of all the great improvements that we've been making and all the outreach that we've been doing directly, I'm not going to be shy to tell you, we are directly targeting those kids and the other surrounding districts' kids that we have seen in the last several weeks as we're doing registration. New kids register to our school, many new kids. So now that we got to keep the ones we still got, that's the key, and then continue to register these new kids as well. But I think with all the improvements that we're making, that I'm feeling cautiously optimistic that we're going to have an uptick in our registration.
Yeah, I think that.
And we have open enrollment.
Right. For students like Cammy and folks, the parents, I think it'd probably be good to have some type of an exit survey for certain students, maybe even staff, to figure out some of the gaps or shortfalls, figure out what can be improved upon.
Right.
So just something to consider in terms of implementing some type of exit survey for students to get that feedback. Lastly, what I have right now in terms of the contractors, just so the public will know, what's the process for bidding on the projects for the ones like we approved today? And, you know, how was it publicly put out there? How will we access that information?
Yep. Nathan, I'm gonna let you step up for this piece, please.
Hi, everyone. I work closely with Nicole, our CFO. When I used to work with Tracy, I would joke with her that I don't look good in orange. And she doesn't like that color either. And so we like to follow by the book. And so with bids, your question is, there are rules for procurement in state and federal law that require how long to post, where to post. So if it's over $150,000, then we have to post publicly for a minimum period of time. So we get on the website, we put in a newspaper. We're starting to get bids on the state website through the Indiana Department of Administration. And to make sure, to make sure that everyone is readily aware. Now, if it's federal dollars, we cannot have a local preference, but we do let our local vendors know. So if we have partners that we work with, we let them know, hey, this job is posted, please go there, get your bid in, and we'll definitely consider it. So all of that is dictated by state and federal rules, and we make sure that we follow those. And then ultimately, you know, that's what we prepare and give to Courtney and then Pete to show that we have followed those procurement rules.
Nathan, could you just state your full name and title for the record?
Yeah. So I told Kamei I was a little nervous too. You know, this is my first meeting in front of you all.
Yes, welcome.
First, so I'm sorry. It's the man sitting in the corner. So, my name is Nathan Williamson. I serve as our Chief Business Officer for our federal programs. I serve as, right now, our Director for our special populations, our special ed division, our homeless, our foster, and overseeing our federal dollars for the ESSER funds. So that, you know, working closely with the rest of the team. So, yeah, new to Gary. I left DOE to come work for Gary, and it's really been a huge blessing in many ways. Enjoyed the old job, enjoyed the new job too, and the difference that I believe that we're making for the kids in our community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What role at DOE? I'm sorry.
I was director of title grants and support at DOE. So the things I'm working on for Gary, I'm pretty familiar with because I used to do it for the whole state with Tracy and others. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure that we do things the right way and do it to support our kids, and that's what we're looking forward to.
So when I came to Gary, he said, "Oh, that would be, if I ever was going to do a job that's so rewarding." So I called him. I said, "Remember when you told me?"
Yeah, now I'm more careful.
Well, thank you very much. Dr. Milky, I want to ask one other question, just because Representative Smith brought it up, and you're the best person to answer the question. Sure. So he asked about the number of administrative staff at Gary Community Schools, and those are increasing. Could you speak to that a little bit? Talk about, is that the case, and talk to us about your thought process, why, and what those people are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We have not increased any of our administrative staff, so there are new faces, however, around the table. So perhaps that's the misconception, but we have not increased our administrative staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you were going to move to
Nicole.
speak with Nicole.
Nicole, come on up. That's what you get.
Hi, good afternoon. It's great to see all of you in person.
Welcome.
I like to meet you all.
You all look younger, right?
The lighting is much better here. So as Dr. McNulty stated, in the beginning of June, we posted an RFQ for broker services. And then on June 14th, we had the bid opening where we received 2 responses for this RFQ. Internally, we created a rubric that district staff evaluated, and based on those proposals that were set forth, the evaluation criteria listed in the RFQ. It is our recommendation that we use Brayman Insurance Services for the district's broker. We found that the initial $150,000 cost savings, in addition to the quality of service that they are able to provide, we're really maintaining our commitment to the community to have affordable quality services. We'll continue to work with both brokers throughout the year as we are using Haywood and Fleming and Brayman at this time for various policies throughout the district. And as we transition in the fall, we plan on going to open market again to bundle all of our services. So I think when we had talked a little bit last time in January, when we were approving the actual amounts of some of the insurance policies, we spoke about how important it was to really rebrand Gary schools and allow for more cost saving opportunities when we reach those markets. So that's kind of been the initiative that to pursue.
And if I understand this one correctly, this isn't something that we need to approve at this point. And I think my understanding is that the way this contract works, or the way that broker services works, is that as you enter into insurance contracts for particular lines of insurance, at that point, that includes a provision that covers the services that the broker is providing as well. So I believe we will approve them sort of as we go through that process of approving this under.
Was the cost savings the final determination in terms of the best direction to go? Because you mentioned this rubric. I was curious of what that rubric.
We did. So, and I actually have the criteria of the rubric. So that was one of the criteria in the rubric, along with the ability for the firm to service the account based on the scope of work, volume of business, the experience of the proposal, the length and time in business, the experience of the individuals assigned to the account, the appropriateness and flexibility of pricing arrangements, references with their qualifications, and then the firm's approach to the initiative, to the innovative offerings and services, and then again, preferences.
I was just curious, as you know, I started receiving a boatload of calls in terms of concerns of non-Gary based companies not feeling as if they're getting access to as many opportunities within the district. So I think it's important that folks know what the process
Absolutely. So
looks like.
yeah, the preference was part of the criteria.
Nicole, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Sorry, I did that too. So I'm Nicole Overton. I'm the CFO.
It's great to have you in person for the first time.
Nice to see you guys.
I think you joined us while we were virtual, so.
Yes, I did. My first in person.
Dr. McNulty, did you?
Next up, I think, is Kim Bradley, and they're going to talk briefly about the test scores and about curriculum.
Okay.
Hello,
Hi.
nice to be in person as well.
Have you? You can grab another one of these.
I'm Kimberly Bradley, the Chief Academic Officer. You all?
Welcome, glad to have you in person.
Thank you. We are here to talk about the iLearn and iStep scores a little bit. We will have a more in-depth conversation at the next meeting, I think I'm told. But we just wanted to go over what was released already and give our ideas about what we're going to do to move forward. I'll let Lieutenant Carter and discuss beginning of it.
Yeah, so it's my understanding you have a letter in your packet from Dr. McNulty discussing the test scores. Yes. And so we wanted to talk about that a little bit today and why we shared with that letter. So as you all may have seen from Secretary Jenner, statements for everyone as a whole in what we're seeing overall as state trends regarding assessment. And the pandemic, as expected, has had a precipitous decline on performance as indicated from our summative assessments through iLearn. And Gary's no different in that, that we've seen a decline in our iLearn scores as well, similar to as how the rest of the state has seen it. But with that being said, we wanted to provide the letter proactively to you all that we know about it, we own it, and we're working on addressing it. Mr. Joyce, your questions earlier about, where does summer school play in? That's absolutely part of the piece. The extended school day is absolutely part of the piece. And so Kim's going to go over how we're responding to that data. We knew prior to the pandemic, we had a lot of work to do with the academic performance of the district. And it's even more so now. And so we have a sense of urgency. We have a robust plan, and we're putting that plan in action so that the outcomes that you all are expecting of us, higher grades, better performance, better attendance, better graduation, all of those things are going to be coming your way, and we're looking forward to celebrating those with you. So how do we get there? Ms. Bradley, you want to talk about the interventions we're putting in place?
Absolutely. One of the things that we're doing is working very closely together. So curriculum and federal programs, special ed, which is why Nathan and I are here together, because we want to optimize those dollars to support our students. Some of the other things that we are doing, like Nathan mentioned, was more time on task. We've added that hour of instruction that Dr. McNulty will talk about a little bit later, I think. More programming options for our students at secondary. We have those career CTE offerings and additions to our high school electives. So one of the things that is important is that you engage our students, or that we engage them in the learning, and part of that is to offer alternatives, a little bit of kind of like what Kamei said, things that are of interest to our students, get them in the door, and then we educate them from there. We are also focusing on PD for our teachers, and we have a PD calendar. We have additional instructional coaches at each school to support the learning process in each building. We are updating our curriculum K to 12. We started with reading, next is math, and we will build from there. A focus on SEL, social emotional learning, and restorative justice is important, because those areas help us, again, engage our students. So a reduction in suspensions and an increase in attendance means that the children are there to receive the learning that we have to offer them. And we have partnerships with various alternative ed programs, and we believe that these will help us see the impact in learning that we know is possible for our students and close that achievement gap that is widened because of the pandemic.
Historically, the Gary calendar had 2 days of PD for the teachers built into their calendar. And the 2 days of PD were 1 day before Christmas break and 1 day before spring break. So it doesn't take a lot of people to understand that we didn't have very good attendance on those days for PD. There was lots of holiday work and things like that instead. So we've worked really hard with the teachers, and they are in agreement that we need to do that differently. So this year we have 4 days of PD built into our schedule, in addition to the late start Wednesday that will happen every week. So the teachers will get 4 hours a month, the late start Wednesday, in addition to the 4 days of PD. And we've got those planned out to the limit, so that they're going to be getting lots and lots of professional development on the data dashboard and the things that we've been talking to you about, so that they can drill down, know exactly per kid in their classroom where those kids are in real time, day by day.
We've also added side-by-side PD for our teachers that happen during the day while they're doing the work that they do around the initiatives, like the 90-minute reading block and the data dashboard, PLCs. So those are some of the areas of the focus. Teachers that will impact our students.
What kind of federal dollars and programs are out there to work with programs for inclusion of the kids? So you can have the teachers, or maybe parents or whatever, the teachers and the children work together so they can feel included. I mean, are there federal dollars out there for those kind of programs to to create that within all the schools. I mean, so kids want to come to school and they want to participate. And I think you can maybe, increase the unenrollment or the kids that don't go. And I mean, it is a lot about inclusion for kids and they all don't feel the same. I mean, is there federal dollars for that?
Yeah, I would, we actually just submitted one Sunday night. It's in Tracy's hands, so we'll ask her about that. Yeah, that one was an after-school grant, and high-quality after-school programs are a good time that you can involve families because it's beyond the typical workday. And then the research behind it shows that when kids have a high-quality after-school program, that their attendance during the regular school day improves as well. So there's a lot of good science behind it. So we've applied for that, along with the grants that Wes mentioned earlier with our local nonprofit organization. And there are other opportunities too. I would also have a caveat that we're also trying to make sure that we're being good steward of the dollars that we already have. And not just be dependent upon getting some of those additional grants that, the monies that we're already entitled to because of our Title I dollars or our special ed dollars, how can we utilize those to the best of our ability? So one of the allowable activities of Title I is trying to improve things like attendance, social emotional, parent engagement. So this week, for example, we've been meeting with all of our principals and having them commit to a calendar of events throughout the entire year. It's going to make sure that the community and the parents are all wrapping around and interested in making sure that our schools are welcome places. You pair that with making sure that the grass is cut, the teachers are friendly when you walk in the door, that we've got some really good team members and we're hiring. I think Gary is becoming a very attractive place to work. With the turnaround that we've done financially, we're able to pay our people well. And I think honestly, people want to come work for us now and we're starting to get those benefits.
It's not more of the exclusion of the kids though. I mean, including them. I mean, they need to feel included with each other.
Right.
And it's not really just the teacher. I mean, they do put it off at the top level, yeah. But, the teacher can have what all want, but if the kids, and they aren't, setting all together and having that, I feel like I belong attitude. I mean, I always felt like I belonged in school, and I mean, people say, hey, I was your high school, man, it's great, I last. But I also know kids, man, it's the biggest nightmare going. And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I felt included, I felt, I participated.
Yes, I was gonna say that. So we just recently did a climate survey through the University of Chicago. And some of the data does tell us that those areas of belonging are important. Now, of course, some of that was done during the pandemic and we were all separated. So part of the charge by our principals is to create the culture and the climate in the building that does allow for everybody to feel included. So some of the initiatives with SEL, that social emotional learning piece, will help us do that. And along with just kind of everybody knowing what is expected when you're in the building and that everybody is important. Some of those basic things that that during the pandemic were still there, but us coming back together is important to continue to cultivate.
In addition, I think that some of the things that we haven't been able to offer in the past at the Geary schools that we're now going to offer will help get some kids who aren't maybe the sports people. We're going to have the spelling bees and the math bowls and the science locates. We haven't had that in the past. So kids can find their niche and find a club and affordable friends that's based on their interest. So I think that's important as well, because I know it was for me when I went to school.
Those are very important.
Yeah.
And what I guess one thing I wanted to touch on is to hear a little bit about the kind of analysis. We have talked, Courtney and I have looked at the iLearn scores as they came out, and I know we've discussed them at least at a high level. What kind of analysis will you guys be doing? What can we expect to see as we come back next time? As we look at that data, what will you be looking at?
So the scores we're going to use it as a baseline for what will happen in the fall. So part of the items that, or part of the things that we know from the data is that math is an area where we need to definitely improve, probably K-12. We are working on adopting a new math program right now. We have a committee together, similar to how we did the reading adoption, but math is an area that we will focus on for certain. And also some PD around those math concepts that are foundational with our teachers as well. And then making certain to focus on the growth. Our formative assessment pieces will also lead to that summative assessment. So making certain that those assessments happen, that the teachers understand the data and can respond on a one-on-one basis and not just overall the classroom, but each student who needs what support and what standards or what strands of support they need. We'll dig down to the student level.
We'll also be comparing ourselves and looking at other urban districts around the state. And so you have some sort of analysis to be able to share with you with some direction from DUAB as well.
Yeah, I think to add, you know, the summative assessment of iLearn, it's given once a year. And if we only look at data once a year, that's not enough. And so the formative assessments are very important, which we use iReady and ExactPath because they're given much more regularly. And teachers have common preparation times now where they can look at that data more regularly with their peers and also their classroom assessments that they give in, you know, Algebra 1 at the high school level to make sure that they're regularly, so the teachers are getting coaching on what a professional learning community is, you know, bringing together groups of like individuals to look at your students' data and where are we and how can we move the needle. And so having the additional instructional coaches is key in that, and us using the formative assessment data. I would also mention that we know that the PD is improving the teachers that work for us, but we also have to make sure that we're recruiting high quality staff that have the licenses that we need. And so we're investing in making sure that we have a partnership with IUN to make sure that teachers that don't have that licensure are getting that licensure. In math at the secondary level, I mean, as indicated by the data that is for our district, is a huge area of need for us. As of a couple years ago, we didn't have hardly any certified math teachers at all. Now we do, and we're making gains in those areas too, because it's not just one size fits all. We have to support the teachers we have now and help them improve. And many of them are doing an excellent job. It's just putting those pieces together.
I would say even beyond the formative assessments and the summative, there'll be some cycle assessments that every 4 weeks, you know, the students will have an assessment that the teachers create, and then they come together to discuss the data and figure out kind of who learned it, who did it, what do we need to do once they do learn it, because you want to accelerate those students too. And if they didn't, the reteaching. So those are some of the things that we're working with the staff.
Well, I think we look forward to working with you. I'd like, and I know we talked about this, I'd like your team plugged in with Courtney and Pete as we do that, and we want to join up with DOE and get their perspective as well as we think through this, because I think has been the theme since for at least the last year and a half. The push now is academics. We have to be focused on that and really pushing on that. And I know that you are. And I really want to make sure that this board is informed with that data, that we can lean into that as we move forward.
Sure. Going back to the climate and culture aspect of things, earlier I mentioned how, throughout this entire process, we've seen a lot of transition and change. And teachers have experienced a lot. Even before the state stepped in, they were inconsistent getting paid on time. They didn't know if they were going to get paid at all certain weeks. So there's been a lot. My question would be, have we seen an improvement in morale in teachers, or is it kind of the same? Where are we in terms of overall morale? Anybody can answer it.
I would say we have seen definitely an increase in morale. People are seeing that the things that are best for kids are the things that are being done. It's a change process, so change is not easy, of course, but I believe that for the most part, folks realize that the goal for us is what is best for those students. And therefore, that creates that positivity.
I think it's an excellent question, though, because much like when we talk about kids who have trauma, our staff has had trauma, honestly. And I hear that a lot from the staff. They've been traumatized through this whole, whatever, the whole bit has happened. But I do feel, because I hear it a lot, that the trust, they feel like there's trust and they can trust the process now. They know that if we say we're going to do something, that we are going to do it. We do meet regularly with the teachers union. We have great conversations with them. We are able to problem solve with them. And we do that building by building and as a whole district as their leadership team. So I do feel like there has been trauma and now we're moving through that process. But yeah, we have to continue to support them and listen to them and make sure that, well.
If I could add, I think climate, atmosphere, all of those things matter, absolutely. Being heard, getting the resources that we need, but pay matters too. And, our teachers this past year, first pay raise in 10 years, right? And then us extending the school day, some of that you all approved last month, some of our teachers are getting close to a $10,000 raise because of that. So I think along with improving academics, when we're talking about improving morale, we have to make sure that they have the resources they need, principals who support them. But also that, we pay them on time and that we pay them well because we put all these interventions in place. And then if there's constant teacher turnover, then we're going to continue to struggle with that. So we know that we have to recruit, retain, and support once they're with us.
This brings me to my next question. I'm glad you brought that up in terms of the recruitment aspect, right? So we know statewide there's a teacher shortage issue, right? That's been stated through reports of all state and et cetera. For districts, specifically in urban districts, it's been kind of hard to identify and recruit teachers as individuals retire. Are we seeing what are those trends looking like?
Yeah. We have a partnership with Purdue so that we have some of their in-service teachers. And so they get a chance to come into our classrooms, work with our teachers. And once they graduate, they can definitely come back and work with us. That's one of the partnerships.
I would add to it too is we have to make sure that we're trying to get our current high schoolers interested in coming back and working. So we know that that's one of our facets. We also put out a program a month or so ago where our paraprofessionals could apply and that we would support them in getting their licensure because the individuals most likely to work for us are those that work for us. That makes sense. So you already work for us, you already live here. Let's help you get finished with your degree and then you're going to stay. And that way we're not dependent upon recruiting people for a year or two that are willing to drive to Gary and then they leave. So investing in who we already have, which is huge for their pay and their own livelihoods. And then also we're trying to make sure that teachers that we do have, getting them the licenses that they need so that they're in the right place. But yeah, in addition to our pay being attractive now, and a lot of that is due to what we're talking about with the extended day, the increased tuition support that the state legislature just recently passed. Thank you, Senator Moulton, for that, and others, because all of that is making a big difference for us to be able to pull those levers and get us to that place.
So this is the second piece to that question I was going to ask, though. Not a question, but just a comment. As you're looking to recruit, one of the issues that we know with the state teacher shortage is the actual licensure, the testing for individuals to get the test to get a license, right? We've had people come testify before us say, I've been a 4.0 student, I can't pass the test. It's great you guys have a partnership with IUN to help individual students with that. So we know on a state level, that's a barrier, right? The other portion to that, and I don't want to gloss over something that I think was important that Mr. Buzz mentioned in terms of being intentional on recruiting minority male student teachers. I think that's something that not just Gary, but all the schools, we got to figure out, just like those students that were graduating, how do we entice them to stay connected with the district, look at it as a future place of employment. But we got, that's waiting down the pipeline, right? But can we do to start planting seeds or looking and recruiting individuals to move in the area, might be minority male teachers, and start building that pipeline of relationships. And those are more of a comment than.
Well, we will come back to this topic next time, and I know we've gone long, but I don't, are there other comments, questions that you would like to address at this moment?
Nathan, the grant you submitted Sunday, was that a 21st century? Then, Ms. Marilyn, your comment about the one-to-one, really pleased to hear that because we think that's going to be critical. Kids were impacted differently, students were impacted differently. So that one-to-one instruction will be key. So glad to hear that.
Thank you. Sure. Up next, we have the consideration of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with the GCSE paraprofessionals. Dr. Dolty?
Okay. So before you should have a memo that we have worked diligently on, again, with the paraprofessionals union. Our paraprofessionals had not had their pay increased for, well, I'm gonna say like 15 years. They were being paid $8.62. So you can imagine we were having a difficult time finding paraprofessionals. We had 26 openings at one point. And as much as we advertised and went out and beat the bushes, we could not find people that were going to take the job. All of our paraprofessionals that currently work for us are all Gary residents. So we have 74 of them, I believe. And we want to continue to keep them on board. So we felt like it was time that we needed to be able to offer a pay increase so that we were competitive and paying them for their valued service. So we did enter into an MOU that we submitted. Again, it does take into account the school hours. And with that, we did write a new job description that we worked with the union on as well.
How does the this new level of pay compare with your neighboring districts, your competitors in that sense?
The neighboring districts were around $14 an hour. Yeah.
And in terms of covering the cost, do you anticipate that is this referendum supported dollars, or where does this come from?
Yeah, this is being paid for out of our ESSER dollars for the first 3 years, and then we'll pay for it out of our new increased EM funding tuition support after the 3 years.
Questions? Mr. Chairman, Dr. Page, could you briefly describe if there's been any changes to the job description? Since I'm assuming with the pay not being upgraded for a while, maybe the job description hadn't been in a while as well. Okay, so touch on that, and then what is the plan for updating the master contract?
Yeah, great questions. So the job description was updated. They did have several different job descriptions for different paras. When we came together, they had one for special ed, one for general ed, and one for title. We've made one job description. We believe that paras should be able to work wherever. And so we made one job description, and it is inclusive of working wherever you are placed within the district. And it does include diapering. That was the only major point that was changed in the job description, because that only fell under special ed, under the old one. And so that took a lot of conversation to say that that's all going to be included under one job description. So that's the major change for those kids that might need it.
And speaking of diapering, is that how old would a child possibly be that a paraprofessional would have to diaper?
Well, we do have preschool that are 3 to 5 year olds. So we do have some preschool kids that maybe are wearing pull-ups still. And then we also have special education students that could go all the way up to age 21 who might be wearing diapers as well.
Gotcha. Thank you. Sure. And about the master contract, is there?
So the master contract, so we're renegotiating both the paraprofessional and the teacher master contract that desperately needs to be updated, that will be presented to the board September-ish.
Other questions? This is one that requires our approval. I would entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize Gary Community School Corporation to enter into the presented memorandum of understanding with the Gary AFT Union regarding paraprofessional hourly rate, workday, and job responsibilities for the 2021-2022 school year.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of approving the paraprofessional contract as approved, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, the motion is adopted. Thank you.
That's a great pipeline into doing exactly what you want to do, keeping these paraprofessionals in the school at higher grade.
Next, we have the path forward update.
So there should be, some people on virtual, will be presenting. Are you quitting?
Are they doing path forward or
Yeah.
school improvement?
School improvement.
Okay, so next we have.
We have the path forward.
Path forward next.
Kim, sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, that one.
It's all right. We got a long agenda. Thank you.
Hello again.
All right.
Okay, so I am sharing the path forward with you that you have in your packet. And this is the third update to the path forward. What you see under academics are some of our students responding again to the, where are the kids? So the student to your far left is Savon, who earned his pilot license. You'll see Kame in the middle there, and two of our students who earned athletic scholarships. And we're very proud of all of our kids, and you can see the different pathways that they have taken. As it relates to engagement, again, for the first time, we expanded the summer school. We talked about here the referendum ambassadors meeting that discussed finance training so that those in our group will understand school finance, which is a little bit different. And then finally, we conducted a survey on feedback about that extended day. So those are some of the areas that we focused on for engagement. For fiscal, again, you'll see here where during Teacher Appreciation Week, we were able to give out bonuses to our teachers. We were very proud of that. And then the increase in the additional year will result in about a $10,000 increase for some of the teachers that we have there. And there are 5 focal areas for our federal funding: instruction, technology, facilities, equipment, and personnel. But of course, moving forward, you'll get a more detailed, comprehensive plan around those funds. For operations, all administrators participated in our restorative justice training that Dr. McNulty talked about earlier. That took place in June. And the focus of that training is on decreasing suspensions and expulsions and creating the kind of environment for our students that will engage them in their learning. We expanded projects on the school improvement fund, and that was in thanks to the infusion of federal dollars. So we spent some time looking at what was needed, what was allowable through our federal funding, and where we could kind of move some monies around so that we can most optimally support the improvements that are needed in our district. And that is the general path forward. I think some of the fiscal areas and the areas where we are more focusing on are, I think, varies on or will be on to discuss.
Okay. All right, other questions? Comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the update on the school improvement fund plan.
So that one should be buried.
Okay. Welcome back.
Facilities director, I've been doing this for the last.
Yes.
For the last 2 years.
Hello, go ahead.
Just a second, Barry.
Go ahead.
I can get the financial.
Or you can carry ahead and see if
Sure.
Barry can work that.
Your agenda packet is the claims docket for the month of June. So as you'll see, there are about $192,000 worth of expenditures for this month, which includes roofing updates, some painting district-wide, some HVAC work, and then our track at Westside, the resurfacing as well. Then, as always, we are still continuing to do our monthly receipt of approximately $454,000. So we have about an ending balance of $4.4 million in this account as of right now.
David's gonna pinch it.
Okay. We're nothing if not adaptable.
Yeah. Yeah, we're teachers, so we can adjust. All right, so you do have some updates within your packet regarding some of our recent capital projects enhancements. So I'm on page 51. You've got the playgrounds that had been made, the updates at several of our buildings as approved within the plan. In the different the different pictures. Let me keep going.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, yeah. I'm struggling. Okay, all right. So updates there. We do have more that we're working on as part of the plan in order to get those done. So those will be forthcoming to you in the near next few months for the additional playgrounds that have not yet been completed. You see drawings there and so on. We're working with the state purchasing agreement that the state of Indiana puts out for playgrounds. We've been trying to do that for different things that are available through quantity purchasing agreements. So you'll see more information about the playgrounds soon with us. This may have gone in a backwards order. 51 looked like the last part. Sorry.
Yeah, currently we are repaving at Westside right now, so our parking lot is looking fantastic. We're about halfway done, more or less, and it's looking great. We are doing some work on the football field, as you guys had approved some of those items today. That'll kind of help in facilitating with installing the Jumbotron and the sound, as well as the turf items, things like that. So we definitely have a lot of things at Westside that are being updated.
Roofing contracts, we're making progress on those. You know, we've had a lot of events at Westside recently with the registration and summer school and so on, and active roof enhancements going on there. And also making sure that, you know, water systems are functioning. HVAC work that we mentioned earlier is going on. Other pieces in here, we know that we're working on, you know, Senator Melton, you mentioned earlier, making sure that, you know, the heating systems are in place. So we're making sure that any schools that only have one boiler, that we're addressing those so that they're, if one were to ever go out, we could always have two boilers that are going to not lead to school being shut down and kids are learning in warm spaces. So we're evaluating that now and making sure that we're getting that addressed. Some of the other information in your pictures, not being a buildings and grounds person, some of these I'm not sure what they are. But they clearly look like progress to me, so I hope
Say your
that,
expert opinion.
I hope that you all agree. But yeah, These look like a lot of roofing projects going on, and you can see the current state of affairs and why those are needed. In the district, we have quite a few classrooms that have leaks, and then you can't use those rooms, or can't store anything in the room because something's going to get damaged. So, you know, West Side High School, for example, will have science labs that'll be available now because we haven't been able to use them because of leaking in there. So I know it's operations, but it does greatly lead to enhancements in academics as well.
Nick, if I can just jump in real quick with this
Yeah.
report. So at West Side, they're almost finished with the roofing project that's underway right now. And as I was walking down the hallway yesterday, as a matter of fact, we have similar ceiling tiles to this one in this room, and they took the ceiling tiles out as they're replacing the roof, and you can literally see outside to the sky. So the roof was desperately needed. The other roofs are on progress, except for one, that the roofing material is delayed. And so we have told them to wait until we can have kids out of the building, because the roof is in such bad repair. As they start to fix it, it makes a mess on the ground. We don't want things falling on the kids. So we're gonna wait several months before we start that project again, while we can do it patches while the kids aren't in the building. But the rest of everything is on track.
What about the, I know there's a demolition project in the works. Give us an update on that.
Yeah, so the Little Wallace demolition is underway. We did have our pre-bid walkthrough meeting approximately a week and a half ago. We had about 24 vendors from around the country that came in for the pre-bid walkthrough, and those that bid process is out right now, and they're due back in about 2 weeks, I believe. And we hope to have someone selected to be able to present to DUAB in September, and we're hopeful that whoever is chosen can start in October. We have been sending out flyers and mailers to the residents who live around the walls to keep them updated as so they know the progress, and we'll continue to do that so that they know every step of the way what's happening with that.
I assume that's a pretty long process because you have to take steps with the environmental remediation and the preparation and then the actual remediation itself. So any sense of when you think that would be done? Do we have a projected date, or do we need to see the bids before we really have a sense of that?
I think we need to see the bids. I know that they did do an environmental study prior to the bid process, what is part of the package moving forward. I don't know how long it takes to demo a building. I assume it's going to be several months, but I do know the environmental study was part of the process.
Well, we look forward to seeing
Yeah,
that.
we're excited about it.
Question, what's the plan with the property once the facility is gone?
So once it's demoed, it'll be taken down to dirt level and cleaned up, and then it'll be up for sale.
Other questions about the school improvement fund update, the capital needs ongoing?
What West Side, is that the lighting as well, or is it just the pavement outside?
The lighting as well. Yeah. Desperately needed, Richard. All the screens.
Yeah.
We do have a couple new RFPs to go out for tennis courts and some other improvements.
Then I think if, for the benefit of all of those here, that next month you, in addition to providing the ESSER plan, the intent is to provide a comprehensive capital plan, because the ESSER plan is the other half of that plan, and bring together for us the entire picture of capital projects that you intend to do for the district. And while we've swapped them between the different buckets of funding, we will have that plan to review and look at.
Sure. Yeah, Dr. Page, people are obviously seeing progress. They're seeing, things are happening, new turf, new track, new roofs, et cetera, et cetera. Do you get a sense of how people feel about that? Are they expressing, do they know, are they verbalizing that they notice?
So at registration fair, the athletic director was there with his team, and they had a booth set up, and that was probably the longest line we had. And so we had elementary kids and middle school kids lined up, signing up for sports, which again is new, because historically we've only really had high school sports that we could offer in a robust way. So it was really exciting to see all the kids who are interested and the parents who are interested. We've had lots of kids coming back from the charter schools because of that, which is a good thing. So nothing being in charter schools, but we're going back into our school. Yeah, I do think that the kids and the parents are very excited. And when we talked about, tennis courts and the pool and all that coming, I mean, people are very.
Sometimes construction is inconvenient, but the end result is.
Oh, definitely.
People forget about the
Definitely.
inconvenience and
Yeah, right.
look at the, Senator Mountain, do you mind if I put you on the spot a little bit and ask you what do you see, what do you notice, what are you hearing from the community?
Facility wise?
Yes, sir.
I think it's optimistic. I think once landmark was the track, right? So that was a good sign right there that people were able to physically see the progress, to see the preparation for the roof to take place. It wasn't high school west side, but the roof was still leaking in, right? In the same location that I would walk in right now. So I think that would be the signs of progress. I think the bigger challenge, excuse me, I think is going to be to communicate that to the masses that's not riding by the facilities, that's not going in, that may not have children, that's dealing with a perception. So we're battling against more of a legacy or perception. This is what's kind of the reality of this from an aesthetic standpoint.
Okay.
So thanks to all my colleagues that supported when we did 1065 to address demolition, because that's really where the conversation kind of started. Because we had to make the case of public safety around demolition. So I think seeing places like Wallace and others that have been catching on fire for years, and people have been going and vandalizing, I think it's going to improve assessed value. I can go on and on about it. I think that the barrier is going to have to be folks that don't have children in the school, that may not be driving directly by the facilities, that they know that these projects are happening. I mean, they're doing a good job from a communications perspective and marketing it, but it's just being more directed to those folks that may not be tied to the district.
So one of the other things that we're doing to try to help capture more people, because we agree, is we are meeting regularly with the local group of ministers. And so there's about 45 of them. And so they have agreed to do messages from the pulpit for us every week. And so our team has been writing things that are happening within our district so that they can read them and put them out on their in their programs for us for messages with the pulpit. And that's been very powerful as well. So I do hear from people who don't have kids in the district. Oh, I heard that XYZ, I'd like to come and volunteer, or can I come and see it? So that's been powerful. But if there's other areas that we're missing, we certainly need to know because we want to hit them.
There's one piece that I think is going to be critical. To have an actual pool in the city of Gary. Not just for the sake of having a pool, say you have a pool, but from a life-saving perspective as well. Because by us being on the lake, we've seen a lot of fatalities over the years of people not being able to swim. Well, Lake Michigan is a very aggressive body of water, but I think that might be in the plans. I don't know.
It's in the.
Okay. I think that's going to be another bonus, right? And there's facilities don't have time limit.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we do have one item of business associated with this, which is the approval of the claims docket, which you'll find on page 53 of your packet. 6, we did speak to that a little bit, with $192,000 thereabouts in new expenditures since our last docket. Any questions regarding the claims docket?
Mr. Chairman.
You guys can arm us.
I would move that we approve the claim docket as presented. So.
All right, it's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you. Our next item of business is the financial updates. Ms. Wolverton, you're here to present that as well.
Thank you. This is my favorite part, so sorry this is at the end. You may not share the same enthusiasm. So I'll go ahead and dive into our cash flow worksheets. I printed some larger copies, so I know a lot of numbers, it can be kind of small to read, but they are the same that are included in your packet as well. So it starts with the education fund. A couple of areas I wanted to highlight specifically in this fund. I think last time this was presented was in March, and we had through February actuals, I believe. So you'll see a large increase or a significant increase, I think, in April for our tuition support. And this is based on our February ADM recalculation for the spring. So that is one exciting trend. As that ADM continues to increase, we will see larger tuition support dollar amounts as well. And then you'll see the basic transfers in and out of these funds for 1065. And then just really overall, I wanted to just highlight that this is a very healthy fund. We're projected to end the year with approximately $2 million in an education fund.
I see you're showing here a transfer from the operating referendum of $83,000 a month, and
Yes.
that's the $1 million for
For the
the
teacher raise.
enhanced teacher raises.
Yes, that were effective as of January 1st this year. The next fund is our debt service fund. One thing that had changed recently is the Indiana Bond Bank received their own allotment of COVID funds. So they allowed their borrowers for 2020 for the tax anticipation warrants to apply through an application process to receive the interest that was paid as a refund. So we did do that application, and we received about $30,000 in the month of May that we were able to receipt in. And again, this was the interest paid on our 2020 tax anticipation warrant. Otherwise, we received our first June distribution, property taxes, about $5.9 million, which is sufficient to pay for our allotment of our long-term debt on our bonds and leases in this fund. Debt service never really has, a money maker, so it's got a, a normal stable balance to pay those debts. And again, this is the long-term debt on bonds and leases. I know there sometimes is some discrepancy on what debt is. On the operations fund, a couple things I want to highlight here. Through the audit process that we just recently had, I know we haven't really spoke much about that yet. We just finished our audit as of July 2018 through June of 2020. In this, we had some dormant funds on previous balances for debt that had been negotiated over the years. So it was no longer a liability that the school district owed, but we still had recorded it on our books. So the auditors, with their blessing, gave us the approval to make a adjustment entry, one-time adjustment entry into the operations fund to clear out those dormant funds. So that was approximately $3.9 million. And that was in the month of May that we recorded it on our books. So you'll see that this had a very positive impact in this fund where our overall deficit balance went from about $9 million to $5 million because of this one-time credit adjustment. That is definitely something that I wanted to highlight, because I think that really sets us up for ending the year as we continue to control spending within that $15 million range on an annual basis. That by December we'll have approximately a $1 to $2 million deficit in this fund, which is a huge change compared to where we were last year. So we're projected to end about $1.5 to $2 million in this fund if we continue on track with spending. And that's not overall, this is just specific to the operations deficit.
Yeah, ask a quick question. I feel like I should know this, but I just can't figure it out. On your expenditures in January and December seem to be, why are they several percentages higher than the rest of the
Is there a specific line item?
salary rate? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
January is a third payroll pay period, so that could be an
Number
increase. I
of
think.
payrolls.
Mhm.
Okay.
We also have that in July and December, I believe,
Gotcha.
as well.
Yeah.
So those numbers kind of.
And so therefore that would affect your insurance as well. And okay,
Yes.
sorry. Thank you.
We also, the insurance too, if you recall, in January with the property liability, we had to make a down payment and then the remainder was financed. So that initial down payment was effective as of January, so that insurance number will be higher as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
On the ADM and the basic grant. So in 22, 23, 24, 25, the projections, I see the ADM in account going up. But the basic grant in 2025, although the number is positive, number goes down. So I was just curious, basic grant amount that the ADM is going.
Sure, so you're looking at our 5-year forecast.
Okay. So even with an increased projection of ADM, basic grant amount go down.
So this is kind of twofold, and I was going to explain this as we kind of got to there and jumping ahead. Just
Why
letting
would
you know,
why would pause the question? We'll come back.
that is a good question, though, so I'll make sure.
We keep getting lots of this, so it's, it's fair.
Um,
Referendum fund, you have that?
Yep, so I'll move on to the referendum fund. So we received our first June distribution of the referendum monies, which was approximately $5.1 million, which was about a 41% collection against our net levy. So this was much more than we had anticipated in receiving, which is great news. Our overall levy in this fund was about $12 million. And then we projected about 75% collection rate just because we weren't sure. This is a new fund for us. So historically, that was a conservative value amongst some of our other collection rates in our other funds. So I think we're optimistic that we'll collect around the same amount in December as well. We are making a transfer from referendum into operations just to support those additional appropriations necessary due to the budget cut we received in the operations fund for 2020.
So then as we look at so we've got the teacher increases at the 83,000, and we've got the support for the operations fund, and that leaves us with a healthy amount to go around. What's the plan for that? Where do we stand with what we're doing?
Sure. So as Dr. McNulty stated earlier, we had 2 meetings with the community and those committees that were developed in the referendum ambassadors group, and they've given us some great ideas on some different programs and things that we can use to utilize these funds. I think we were on a brief pause to see what our June distribution amount was, and then we could kind of collectively as a district address some of those suggestions and then kind of what our needs are and where we can allocate those dollars for the rest of this year.
The collection rate was for the first.
For the referendum, it was about 41% of our net levy.
That's after circuit breaker.
Correct. Yes, our circuit breaker, we had a small credit. It was only $3,000 for the referendum.
So you might just expect 42, 43, 45%?
I think December I have about 4.2 million. So I mean, optimistically, I'm still budgeting for the 75% collection rate. Just
Okay, so you're still, okay. So you haven't raised that to maybe 80 or 82? Or?
No, not yet. I tend to be very conservative on these sheets, so as you'll all see.
Okay.
So I haven't yet, but I'm hopeful.
You're waiting for the data to
Yes,
come in to make that
exactly.
decision.
Nicole, quick question, just as I look at this sheet, and I look at the monthly beginning balance or cash fund balance, and you have balances listed for January through May. Tell me what those numbers mean if we didn't get the money, the first draw till June. What am I looking at?
Sure. So in the month of January, we went for a tax anticipation warrant only specifically for the referendum dollars. And this was to allow us to be able to fund those teacher raises, that first $1 million commitment. So that allotment of the tax anticipation warrant was about 6 months worth of distributions in that fund. So we did have a beginning balance, and you'll see in December we have that amount plus interest to be paid back.
It gets paid back.
Correct. And I'm hopeful that this will be the last tax anticipation warrant that we have to do. I think we're in a much better financial position. Our next sheet, I believe, is our budget versus actual analysis. This just kind of highlights only education and operations specifically. A couple of things to note, our education fund, we're 54%, 57% expenditure, so we're right on target for half the year based on our budgeted amounts. And our operations fund, just wanted to highlight that, our revenue year to date does seem higher than budget, and that is also because of that one-time journal entry for our State Board of Accounts, that credit that we were able to receive, as well as the additional referendum monies that we are transferring as well. Otherwise, we're still continuing to control spending, and we only had a $5 million budget in this account, and that's why we definitely need that additional support. Any specific questions on the budget versus actual? Then the 5-year forecast. I'll get to your question. I included in 2022 and 23 our projections for state legislation of the 6.8% increase in tuition support, and I believe it was 3.5 the following year increase. So that is included in our tuition support dollars. The ADM, I've kind of made a consistent small growth amount, but again, tend to be a little bit more conservative. So I don't want to factor in the actual revenue from that until we have those, students in the seat. We can take that ADM into account. For 2025, I do think that the actual tuition support balance will be higher than that amount. But until we can kind of see a steady trend of how those fluctuations go based on the new legislation and what we're actually collecting, based on our student count, it tends to still be conservative.
And hold us to our promise.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think I've asked you the same question before, but the answer is, you show the increase in ADM, you're hopeful that comes, that's what we're working towards, but from a financial standpoint and a budgeting standpoint, you essentially assume flat enrollment for now, so that we are conservative on that.
So the only increase I have shown is the new legislation of this. Once we get new data for the next year on our complexity grade, we can adjust. I think that was all the major highlights. The end overall balance, I think is probably the most key factor in this 5-year forecast.
Drum roll, please.
I know. I could hear her back like, no, that was not the end. So really, what does 2021 look like for us? That's the question. And we're going to be in a much better spot. So I don't want to, promise any numbers, but I think we are definitely going to end in a positive, cash flow at the end of 2021, which is different than we've been in the future. So we're definitely showing great progress. So I think going forward, you'll see the trend is that we're going to continue to have good cash reserves. I think this kind of sets up for our next, month or so when I start talking about budgets and what that looks like for us. I think we have a couple, tricks up our sleeves to kind of how we can, start saving in our rainy day funds, which we don't currently have, things like that, and kind of start to move forward where we're going to be financially and can actually kind of, make that momentum move where we haven't been able to do that in the past. So it's definitely very exciting. Yes, I guess that's
You're very optimistic.
Yeah.
I do believe you guys, I know it's coming soon, but there is an update then on the operating deficit then that is being presented in the near future.
Yeah, next month.
Yeah.
It'll be through June 30th.
Yeah.
So there's light at the end of the tunnel.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
It's not a train.
That's right. It's not a headline at the end of the tunnel.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So Nicole, if I were to say that your April performance were to be in effect do you want to change your answer? But no, and honestly and sincerely and seriously, the level of sophistication of these documents is very, very good, and we appreciate that. Thank you for all your hard work on these. These are very, very helpful, and people up here notice that you put a lot of work into it. Thank you.
And I do want to take a moment to recognize the the expected success that we hope to see here in the future, that we, as we do the math, we don't have to make any wild assumptions to get to where we hope to be, which is in the black and with money to spend rather than looking for money to just give up. So thank you all. All right, any other questions on the financial update? Right, we have one other item of business, as I see people are getting a bit antsy, and I understand that. We have a consideration of the custodial and maintenance contract with Alpha Building Services. This is a contract, it's been a couple of years since we considered this matter, but it is back, it has run its course, and have a new contract to consider.
Yes, so this is a optional renewal year for your consideration. With the pandemic and finally having all the kids back in the building full time, I think we kind of needed to take a pause and see what those janitorial services looked like for us. With the addition of Barry Quinn now joining the team as well, it was kind of challenging to make a decision on what kind of needs we needed for this upcoming school year. So this will kind of allow us that time period to really put together a good RFP that we hope to do in the next several months to have out for after this optional year.
And just remind everyone that this is a fairly sizable contract for the district. What is this one?
So I believe it's a not to exceed of $3,056,000.
$3,060,851.
Yes.
There.
As you put that RFP together, I'm sorry, guys. That's what it is. As you put that RFP together, could you also put together, I mean, like an analysis as to, is the outsource working? I mean, is it a positive benefit to outsource this or to do it within? So, I mean, do the RFP, but also do maybe a 5 or 10 year projection going forward as to if it was in-house, because as just pointed out, $3 million is not chump change. This is real money. And so it's like, we want to make sure that we're getting the best benefit for the dollar.
And that is something we definitely have discussed. I'm a big component of that too, kind of seeing if it was in-house, what that would look like for us as well. So we are going to explore every avenue. So when we put together.
And we would like to see it as well.
And of course, things have changed since the last time we did this. There was less certainty around the district. People were, we hadn't established a clear billing history or payment history at that point. And so, perhaps there would be some opportunity to benchmark ourselves against other districts who maybe were more similarly situated to now.
I think along the lines of when a contractor is approved, that is local hiring is encouraged. Just to make sure whoever's in those existing positions, I don't know what it looks like that transfer over, but it's extremely important.
Yeah. I believe last time we did have that, and if I remember, they did hire all, if not almost all of them.
I can't say all, but almost all is accurate.
I think we ought to require, I mean, any points will say we ought to require the same thing. Go forward. All right, well, this is, any questions regarding the custodial contract otherwise? Is there a motion?
Chairman, I would move we authorize Gary Community School Corporation to enter into a 1-year contract renewal through June 30th of 2022 without the building maintenance services in the amount not to exceed $3,060,851.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Is there any new business to come before the board today? Can't imagine we covered a lot. That is for sure. All right. Well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.